Hi, my name is Eileen. I am a compulsive overeater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the gray sheet. I write them down, call my sponsor, and commit my food. And I don't eat in between no matter what, and abstinence is the most important thing in the world to me. I am so grateful for my abstinence. My first day of abstinence was July 17th, 1995, and I have over 18 years of back-to-back abstinence, which means all that time with no snacks, all that time with no cheating, just doing this one meal at a time, one day at a time, no matter what. I'm here to tell you a little bit about what it used to be like, what happened, and what it's like now. What it used to be like was, as far as I can remember when I was a kid, I just loved food. Food was my savior. Food was my friend. I preferred sugar and carbohydrates to anything else that was on the table. I preferred grazing to eating 3 meals a day or more. I was often known as a picky eater in my family because I didn't like vegetables and I didn't like a lot of things that were served for dinner. I mostly wanted to go down to the corner store and buy candy and other stuff that was considered snack food or dessert food, and left to my own devices, that's all I would do. My dad used to run the bingo game at church, and he would get these sugar packets for coffee in 5, 10, 15-pound boxes. And I can remember stealing away into the closet, sitting on the bottom of the closet, closing the door where the box of sugar packets were, and eating them one at a time, paper and all. And I was a young kid at that time. You know, I wasn't a teenager. I was a young kid. And that's what I did. And it worked for a while. My family was very chaotic, and my father was prone to rages, and my mother was often on edge. I was her friend and confidant, and she overate as well, and we would bake together in the kitchen, and those are some of my happiest childhood memories, baking with my mom in the kitchen. And my dad was a diabetic, he was an alcoholic, and he never stopped drinking till the day he died, and he died when he was 60 years old of an overdose of alcohol and prescription drugs. So I know about this disease, and I never wanted to be an alcoholic, and I didn't want to be fat like my mom, but I did both, and tried to control it. Went on diets with her a lot. I could lose weight. She, at that point, couldn't lose weight anymore. But I could always lose 5 pounds and then gain it right back. Or lose 10 pounds and gain it right back. Later, lose 15 or 20 pounds and gain it right back. And the turning point for me came when I was pregnant with my daughter. I was 27 years old. I tipped the scales over 200 pounds. I was overweight before I got pregnant, but I gained a lot of weight and didn't have any incentive to watch what I was eating because the number on the scale was going to keep going up no matter what I did. And I have to say, I was never an obese, fat, horrible person looking. I was tall, so I could carry my weight a little bit better, but I was always a little chunky. And that served me, I could lose weight when I wanted to have a boyfriend. When that relationship soured, I would start eating again and put on a few extra pounds and break up with the guy. And it was all that way, Food never let me down. Food never changed its mind. A bag of candy at Sadie's always tasted the same. And no matter what. It was always predictable and stable and a good, solid relationship as far as I was concerned. And then after I gave birth to my daughter, I could not lose the, quote, baby weight. That wasn't the baby weight. That was the dessert weight. That was the weight that I put on. I lost 25 pounds the first weekend after she was born, and that was the baby weight. She was 8 pounds and 10 ounces, but not an extremely large child. No, I lost about as much weight as a normal woman does lose when she has a baby. But there was all that other stuff that I'd put on, and I just wasn't motivated to get it off. And I could have worn maternity clothes for 2 more years. I didn't want to buy bigger clothes. I just didn't want to do any of that stuff. So what happened was my next door neighbor was very obese, and she had a baby. And I noticed from winter to spring, one day she came out of her house in the springtime and she was thin. She lost like half of her body weight. She lost 100 pounds. And when I asked her how she did it, she told me she went to GreySheeters Anonymous. She took me with her to a meeting. They used the Gray Sheet as a food plan until you got to your goal weight. And then they switched to another maintenance kind of plan, which they said they reintroduced carbohydrates into your food plan at that point. Well, carbohydrates and I never needed an introduction. I didn't forget about them. I lost 40 pounds in 4 months, 20 pounds the first month. And the Gray Sheet food plan really worked for me. I never felt hungry. I never felt deprived. I always had delicious meals. This particular OA group did not weigh and measure our food without exception. That's what we do on the Gray Sheet. We do it no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, no matter who we're eating with. And so I would bring my scale. I would use my scale at home, but when I went out to a restaurant, I didn't. And I was interested in losing weight, so I didn't go out to very many restaurants. And when I got to my goal weight, I just said, okay, I know how to do this now. And I never went back to OA. I never called my sponsor again. I gained all my weight back and then some. And I had the added shame of knowing that I was a compulsive overeater, but really not wanting to be, needing to weigh and measure my food forever. So whenever I saw anybody that I used to know at meetings, I would pretend I didn't see them. I would be immediately ashamed. So I avoided people that I knew from OA, and that didn't work for me either. And finally, I hit my bottom, and I don't exactly remember why or how. All I know is I walked into a meeting of GreySheeters Anonymous in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I cried listening to all the qualifications. I got myself a sponsor, and I've been abstinent ever since. I've weighed and measured my food at weddings, on trips to Europe. I have weighed and measured my food everywhere and all the time, 3 meals a day for the last 18 and a half years, and I am so grateful for it because it's given me a life second to none. And I can't imagine what it would be like if I didn't weigh and measure my food. What I did is I got myself a sponsor, agreed to call her every morning at the same time, and she and I worked out a food plan for the next day. And she showed me a Gray Sheet, and she said, I want you to put a check mark next to the food that you like on this sheet of paper. And so that's what I did. And she said, I want you to ignore all the other food. This is not about the diet. This is not about squeaking along, eating the worst food in the world, so that when you get to your goal weight, then you can go on an eating binge and spree and eat all the food you've been longing for all this time. And I really need to say that if I didn't like my food every day, I could never have done this for 18 and a half years. I love food. I still love food. I still enjoy my meals. My meals are still a bright spot, 3 bright spots in my day. And no matter how bad a day it is, and no matter how good a day it is, I need to stop and have my 3 weighed and measured meals. And that allows me to have life in between my meals. It allows me to actually enjoy conversation at the dinner table. It allows me to get to know people and pursue other interests in my life. I've done a million things in abstinence. I got married in abstinence. I weighed and measured my food at my wedding. Let's see, what else have I done in abstinence? I moved from New England to the Southwest, where I live right now. I recorded original songs, a whole CD of original songs in abstinence, things that I wanted to do when I was eating, but I couldn't. I wrote a book and got it published in abstinence. I moved to a completely different part of the country, made new friends, and we have a face-to-face gray sheet meeting in Taos, New Mexico once a week. There's only one other continual member, but we share 28 years of abstinence together, and we do this no matter what, and it really helps to have someone else do this. Although I lived in Taos for a few years without anybody else doing what I did, and because I had a firm foundation, I got abstinent in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I could go to meetings every single day if I wanted to, and in the beginning I really did want to. I had friends who talked about what they did, how they stayed abstinent through all their life things, through job interviews. I weighed and measured in a job interview at breakfast, excuse me, in a restaurant. I'll never forget that. Nobody else even noticed what I was doing, but I did. I weighed and measured breakfast, and I got the job. I have weighed and measured at other people's weddings. I remember sitting at one of those big round tables where, there may have been 12 people at this table at a wedding, and it was almost a first date with this guy. And I brought my food with me in my bag, backup food, so that I'd have what I needed. And somebody saw me spooning some vegetables onto my plate. And from across the the big, wide, circular table, she said, "You brought your own food to a wedding?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what I do. This is what I do." I don't explain myself anymore, although in the beginning I felt like everyone who witnessed me weighing and measuring my food deserved an explanation, and I felt that I was required to explain myself to people. I don't believe that anymore. Most people don't care. They might be interested, from a curiosity standpoint. The people that ask me lots of questions usually have food as an issue in their life, one way or the other. And now, when people do that, when I'm trying to eat and enjoy my meal, I just say to them, I find this conversation kind of boring, and I like to enjoy my food, but I would be happy to talk to you about it any other time. So I'll give you my number if you want to call me. You know what? They never do. Most people just want to know enough about the gray sheet so they get to the point where they say, "Oh, I couldn't do that. That's not for me." But if you are as sick a compulsive eater as I was, if you are as ashamed of your body as I was, ashamed to buy bigger clothes, to go out in public, to be seen the way that I was so depressed, and I really went straight to hopelessness when I was eating. I just didn't have enough time in between my grazing to even know what it was like to be hungry, or to know what it was like not to be disgusted with myself for what I was eating. I would try to control it, get to the point where I realized I can't control this. I can never control this, and then feel like, I might as well be 80 years old because I don't want to go out of the house. I can't even control my own food. How can I do anything worthwhile in life? And that's really how I felt. Nobody knew that around me because I couldn't talk about it with anyone. I had so much shame. I kept this all to myself. So for me, being able to weigh and measure my food, go to the grocery store, avoid the middle aisles almost entirely, and just get the things in the produce aisle that I like, and the meat aisle that I like, and the spices, and the coffee, and my favorite dairy, and then just go home and have an abundance of beautiful food to eat. I mean, I actually have lots of food on my plate at every meal, which surprises a lot of people. Sometimes they look at my food and they think I'm a vegetarian, and then I show them my protein, or they think that I'm on a diet, and I say, well, I don't know, I've been doing this for 18 and a half years. I don't think there's a diet that usually lasts that long. This is just what I do. And I try to be good-natured about it. And if people are mean about it, I don't even respond. I may demur slowly or, easily with just yeah, this is what I do. Yeah, I always do this. Yep, this is what I do. Yeah, I do this. I like doing this. I like this, So I give myself permission to eat the same breakfast every day if I feel like it, the same lunch, the same dinner. I don't care. A lot of people are in a rut eating the same food week in and week out, and sometimes I feel like changing, and sometimes I like what I eat, and I can eat it for a long time. And it's nobody's business but my own. The first thing I said to my husband when we met many years ago now, when he wanted to take me out to lunch, I said, how about coffee? Coffee's easy. And he said, well, you have to eat lunch, don't you? I said, yeah. So when he came to pick me up, I sat him down and I showed him my scale and my backup in Tupperware. And I said, if you go out to lunch with me, this is what it is. This is what I'll do. I'll bring my scale. I'll weigh my food. If you don't want to do this, I'm just warning you now so we can find another option. But literally, his one question was, well, you don't eat sugar. Can I have dessert? Do you mind if I have dessert? And I said, well, no, you can have whatever you want. And he said, well, let's go. So anyway, I have lots of people in my life that know me, appreciate me for who I am, know that being a compulsive overeater in recovery is really an important part of who I am. And it's taught me how to take care of myself, how to stand up for myself, how to make sure that I get what I need. And I found a way to do it with grace and dignity. And that took a while. That took a company. That took meetings and people talking about how they did it. Which is why we always say a gray sheet needs to come with a sponsor, because we can't do this alone. It's not just a food plan. Yes, the food is nothing that I get compulsive or obsessive over. It does not get my cravings started. None of the food that I eat is anything that I crave anymore. My cravings stopped a long time ago. But I need to know that I'm not the only one on the planet doing this, because I would talk myself out of it. I need to be in contact with my sponsor and my sponsees every day so that we know that we're all on the same page. We're in this together. We have a safety net. If I get into trouble, I make a phone call. If something happens, I call somebody. If I get sick and I can't eat and I'm sick to my stomach, I call my sponsor. We go through things together in this community. And I am so grateful to be a member of GreySheeters Anonymous. I'm so grateful for all my abstinence. And it has given me a relationship with myself and with my higher power and with others that is a life that is second to none. So thank you for listening.